If your love mourns, come, and God will hold you. We will not be alone in the pain of our loss. If your heart grieves, come, and God's arms will enfold you. Our God has seen and will not turn away from us. We have come together within the strengthening fellowship of friends and family to reaffirm our faith in God's unfailing goodness and commend the one we love to God's everlasting care. Welcome to this memorial service for Judy Zier. Whether you are in this place or joining us online, thank you for being present today to remember Judy, to lend your support to her family. We have come together within the strengthening fellowship of family and friends to praise God for Judy and her life, to share our grief with God and with one another, to reaffirm our faith in God's unfailing goodness. We come to commend Judy. There will be tears this day, and I would be disappointed if there were not some laughter, because of the joy that she had for life and for you. We come together to lean on one another as we remember this child of God. Let us go to God in prayer. Gracious God, your steadfast love endures forever, your faithfulness to all generations. We ask you now to make us keenly aware of your presence with us today, for we need you to come to us in our grief. Speak to our hearts words of comfort. Touch us with the promises contained in your word. Enfold us with the people gathered today, both here and online, and all who share our loss. Fill us with the joy and peace that comes only from you. In the stillness of this time, we know you are here, O God, and we give you thanks and praise. It is in the name of Christ our Savior that we pray. Amen. Bob, in December of 2015, you told me that you really didn't know why you and Judy started back to church, but understood that you would need some support in what was to come. Those times came, and now they come again. You come gleaning support from those around you, knowing the support that you've given to so many, including Ruth and me. I know I speak for your neighbors, your former neighbors, and so many friends when I say that we thank you for adopting us, making us feel like family. It seems unfair that we come here today, confined to a period of a few minutes to give voice to a lifetime of living. I can't help but look at those that gather this day and see Judy's impact. Then add to those gathered the students taught in 37 years of teaching on 3 continents. Even though 72 is too young, her legacy is immense. These days, especially since the beginning of April, have been difficult days, beginning with leg wounds, but rallying in the middle of June to have a get-together at your house. Judy held court that afternoon, and neighbors sat next to her and visited. My job was the encourager of eating that night, as she had requested pizza rather than hot dogs. By the end of June, when I saw her just before surgery, she calmed for just enough time for prayer and blessing. A week ago yesterday, She knew which direction this was headed. As I talked to her in the hospital with the rest of you out of the room, I was privileged to hear stories of courtship and relationship, of children and cross-country travel. I count those moments precious. She winked at me when I left. Her body failed her on Tuesday morning. Scripture has a word about that. 2 Corinthians 4:16 through 5:1. So we do not lose heart. Even though our outer nature is wasting away, our inner nature is being renewed day by day. For this slight momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all measure, because we look not at what can be seen, but what cannot be seen. For what can be seen is temporary, but what cannot be seen is eternal. For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. Skylar.
Good morning. I'm Sean Zier, Judy's son, and secretly favorite child. The Zier and Layton families thank you with all our hearts for those who are here today in person, those watching online, and those who have sent such heartfelt and heart-filling messages. We have family and friends from all over the country who have offered their support, and we are truly grateful. Now, if you know Judy, and let's clarify, if you don't know Judy and you're just here for free sandwiches, the Saperstein wedding is 4 miles down the street, and the buffet is top-notch. So if you know Judy, you know her for her numerous attributes: a flair for the dramatic, enthusiasm and energy, an unbelievable public speaker with a penchant for audience engagement, that blinding yet never-ending smile, great hair. I am extremely lucky to have inherited these qualities from my mother. But Judy and I aren't just great, luxurious, beautiful silver hair. Oh no, we're much more than that. I digress. Judy was so many things to so many people. I know for 43 and 40 years, respectively, what she was for Molly and I. As a mother, she was the most loving, caring, understanding, and tangibly present person in our lives. From sporting events to graduations to weddings to 1 a.m. phone calls to the births of multiple grandchildren, Judy juggled it all with grace and gumption and made every effort to always be there, despite any circumstance. Neither of us could have asked for a better mother, and I finally truly understand what the phrase broke the mold means. As a sister, daughter, cousin, and aunt, there are not enough hours in the day to recount all of the stories of all of those people's relationships with Judy. Not surprisingly, the majority of those people are here today. Find a minute and share a story with one of them. Learn something that you weren't aware of that will make you belly laugh. And trust me, just when you think you've heard it all, something else will blow your mind. And her twin sister Jane and I had a conversation about the Anvik family picnic last Saturday up in Minnesota. And as I understand it, they told countless Judy stories with the same effervescent smile which she wore all the time. And Jane said to me, "It will be the Judy stories that people continue to tell, which will let younger generations of family and friends create memories, for some, of a woman they never really knew." How true this is, and how important our responsibility to continue to share those stories. That's just page 1. I'm realizing this might be longer than you guys anticipated, so buckle up. As a teacher, we, as her children, got to watch her excel at something in a way which we sort of understood and were genuinely amazed by, but we weren't part of the day-to-day which her students over 37 years were privy to. I didn't know how to express what she meant to literally thousands of children over her tenure. So I will offer excerpts from 2 of her students who left messages online. Mrs. Zier was my 5th grade teacher at Old Town Elementary in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in 1985. She was without a doubt the most influential teacher I've ever had in my life. I have been a teacher for 25 years, and to this day, when planning for a new project, I often wonder what Mrs. Zier would do. I'm sad to learn of her passing because I've actually been trying to locate her for several years just to tell her personally how important her teaching style has been in shaping what I try to create for students every day. She was so far ahead of the curve in knowing what kids really need to learn and how to make honest connections with them. I was in her class the year she was a finalist to go to space on the Challenger. We had mini society, a play, a trip to Washington, D.C., and a million other small moments that touched the lives of all of her students. I'm sure my story is but one of many of the lives she touched. She was truly an amazing human being. Judy Zier was my 5th grade teacher at Kimberly Park Elementary in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. As I type, several of us that are still friends from then, more than 30 years ago, are texting about all the things we learned and loved in her class. She made a big impact on many of us, but I will never forget the additional hours I spent with her in a program called Odyssey of the Mind. She was the first person who ever really made me feel smart and like there were no limitations to what I could achieve. I wish she could see the amazing things so many of us have grown up to be and do. She would be so proud of us. I know there are many with whom she must have given the same confidence. We're so blessed to have Mrs. Zier. I don't know Leah or Tracy, but I thank them for this, and I couldn't do justice to what she meant as a teacher better than what I just read, and from the countless other tributes I've seen from past students. And I agree with all of you. You got a 1 in a million teacher. As a wife, for just over 5 decades, Bob and Judy were synonymous for dinner parties which lasted into the next day, impromptu dancing, be it alone or in a crowd, laughter and stories which often sounded so outlandish it just couldn't be true, but remarkably always were. But most importantly, Bob and Judy shared a love that is impossible to put into words. Love, that 4-letter word, which in spite of all that love was never the only 4-letter word uttered. Judy took care of not only my sister and I, but of my dad through any and all of the health issues we've dealt with over the years. And Bob took care of Judy when it was his turn, and did it unconditionally, without hesitation, with love, and definitely some of those other 4-letter words. till death do us part. Thank you for holding up your end of the bargain, Dad. Well, this is going to be tougher now. Great. I consider myself a bit of a music connoisseur, and we certainly listen to a wide range of music throughout my life. We listened to some music at the hospital over the last few months at times, and then at home just last week. I let Dad or Molly play DJ until it was just Mom and I. And over those last few months, I would introduce Judy to some great songs. At least I thought they were great, and she, in her infinite loving manner, would nod and smile regardless if she liked them or not. But towards the end, a couple of songs came to mind. There's a lyric from Nathaniel Rateliff that kept repeating in my head, but not until I knew it was time for her to leave us. They say you learn a lot out there, how to scorch and burn, have to bury your friends, then you'll find it gets worse. Standing out on the ledge with no way to get down. You start praying for wings to grow. Oh, baby, just let go. Last year, we lost a great musician named John Prine, who has touched me pretty deeply. I re-listened to his most recent album and had visions of my grandparents, uncles, and my nephew Henry welcoming my mom with Summer's End in the background. Well, you never know how far from home you're feeling until you watch the shadows cross the ceiling. Well, I don't know, but I can see it snowing in your car. The windows are wide open. Come on home. Come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home. I mean, I sang at my sister's wedding, so if you didn't think I would utilize this opportunity for my musical stylings, you were sadly mistaken. Which brings me to the last song that I was absolutely blaring in the car just yesterday by one of the all-time greatest lyricists and poets who wrote this song specifically for his mother. If you wear bifocals or have a pacemaker, you may not know who this is. There are no words that can express how I feel. You never kept a secret, always stayed real. And I appreciate how you raised me and all the extra love that you gave me. I wish that I could take the pain away. If you can make it through the night, there's a brighter day. Everything will be all right if you hold on. It's a struggle every day, gotta roll on. And there's no way I can pay you back, but my plan is to show you that I understand. You are appreciated. Rest in peace to Pac. And I know I've missed so much in talking here, whether it's the fact that Judy, like her father Art, would strike up conversations with random people who always became better people themselves because of it, or that she loved every one of Molly and my friends and treated them as if they were her own children, a sentiment that was reciprocated by every one of those friends. Everybody wanted a Mama Jude. Or that literally every comment I have read talks about her legacy, her grace, her kindness, her soul, her childlike and never-ending curiosity, her constant warm and kind words, her encouragement and constant gentle pressure, her beauty, her humor, her love for travel, her joyful spirit, her sympathy, her magic, her energy, her unconditional acceptance, her ability to light up a room with her presence, her gift of teaching, her generosity, her uncanny ability to create community wherever she went, her vibrant personality, and of course, that smile. While I firmly believe all of these things, the beauty is I didn't have to say them. You all did. How lucky we all are to have known Judy. It's the last paragraph, I promise. I'm done here. After today, many of you will travel back home, hopefully with fond memories of a wonderful woman. Times like these remind me of the pure kindness which exists oftentimes when someone we love is at their worst. The Ziers and Laytons will be okay. We persevere. Zier Nation, baby. And if any of you ever need help, a phone call, a shoulder to cry on, or just a friend to sit quietly with, don't hesitate to ask. Or better yet, don't worry about it. We'll probably already be there, just like Judy always was.
Good morning. I am Molly Layton. I am Judy's daughter and am the known favorite child. I think I know most of you here, but if we have not met, please do come say hello after the service. Thank you all so much for being here today. It means an incredible amount to our family. I wish more than anything, I could share a big old Judy hug with each and every one of you. She always hugged with purpose, and those hugs were felt in a large way, both figuratively and emotionally. We were hanging with Mom at the hospital last week, and she said, "Time for hugs. Get in here and cuddle." I said, "Mom, I don't think we can all fit. No one has ever called either of your children petite." She didn't like that answer. She opened up her bedding and said, "Get creative. Come cuddle your mother." I sure will miss her hugs, and I will miss our cuddle time, even in my 40s. My mom used to put on these large musicals. They were full-on productions. She used to sit in the back of the auditorium during rehearsal and yell, "Louder! Give it more gusto. I need to hear you way back here." She gifted Sean and I with a voice, asked us to always use our hearts and to be heard when we had something important to say. Anytime we were doing any sort of public speaking, Mom would remind us to give it a large dose of gusto. Well, here goes, Mom. A letter to you, delivered with gusto from your baby girl. Dear Mama, there are a wild and lovable amount of Judy memories and Judy-isms that have flooded in over the past few days. Too many to share right now, here, today. But I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Mom, for the smiles, the laughter, and the healing these incredible stories will bring throughout the days and years to come. You have left a lasting, hilarious, and oh so warm impression on us all. Do you remember the time we were driving away from Sean's soccer game and you pulled a U-turn right over a tree stump and tore the entire running board off the side of your car? The game stopped, players and parents stared, and you proceeded to tell Kelsey Butler and I, who were laughing uncontrollably, to get out of the car. You said a few choice words to yourself, picked this large piece of your car up, and tossed it in the back of Larry Wapker's truck so that we could then make our soccer game on time. Larry dropped the piece of the car off in our driveway, and Dad found it later that day, scratching his head. To this day, I laugh pretty hard at the whole scenario. You were a problem solver, always shook things off and moved on quickly when there was nothing else that could be done to help a situation. I appreciate that, and it is a tool I try to utilize and keep handy. And while we are on the top of soccer, you were and always will be my absolute favorite coach. I can hear you now running up and down the sidelines shouting, "Boot it, baby." I gained confidence in myself at a young age because of you, Mom. I thank you for that. You raised Sean and I to believe we could do anything. We could be anything. We were strong and we were smart. But you also threw many, many, many dinner parties. And always asked that we come introduce ourselves to your guests. Sometimes, Aaron Valeni and I would even raid your closet, sneak around the back door, and show up at the front door with your fabulous dresses on and act as though we were arriving at the party. Learning how to introduce myself, shake hands, and make eye contact was important to you, instilled confidence, and is a cherished gift from you to this day. You told us that home was always a plane ride away and to go out and see the world, experience it all. At one point, I was living in New Zealand and Sean in Alaska. You then said, "You guys have taken this too far." I miss my babies. We continue to try to make you proud and now show our little ones the world. Thank you for passing that adventurous spirit on to us, Mom. Speaking of adventures, do you remember the time you were trying to get to Bangkok with Dad? And you had a ticket, and Dad was on standby, and you promised the gate agent a date when you got back if you could get your friend on the flight too. He asked your friend's name, and you said, Roberta Zier. Roberta was a bit more masculine than the gate agent expected, but was welcomed on the plane, and you still promised the date as you both boarded the flight. You are nuts, and goodness, I love you for it. Mom, your classrooms were magical. They were messy. They were really messy, but they were magical. They were full of everything creative. Your students are incredibly fortunate to have been influenced by Mrs. Zier. You had a forthright style and did not tolerate nonsense, both at home and in the classroom. But once that was understood, it was game time. You acted out history lessons with wigs and costumes. You jumped on the roof of schools to drop eggs down as you taught your kids about outer space and gravity. You had students set up stores, banks, schools, and community as a way to teach them about the economy. You jumped on high ropes courses with no hesitation and put sheets over your head to tell ghost stories. Education meant the world to you. You fought for your students, you stood up for them, you created an amazing learning environment. You were all in and completely hands-on. You stayed in touch with students through the years, went to music performances 20 years after a student in your class. You showed up so much with all of your support. Gosh, you were passionate about your craft. Your heart was big, and I am so proud to be your daughter. Mom, Rob reminded me that he once said to you that I laugh at the inappropriate moments. Without skipping a beat and zero sympathy for Rob, she said, "Yep, she gets that from me." So much inappropriate laughter from you. I know there will be many fabulous stories about you in the coming days, and I know we will be buckled over in laughter recounting all the fun you brought to our days. Your sense of humor was golden, and in my opinion is the secret of life. Sean and I will continue to give Dad a very hard time in your honor. Laugh loudly, often, and I hope to God you will hear us. You loved your family fiercely. You loved my friends as though they were your own. You wore your heart on your sleeve. Simply put, your heart overflowed with pride and love for anyone close to you. I will cherish a conversation we just had a few weeks ago forever. You were so excited I was headed to Minnesota to be with our incredible crew there, and you went on and on about the love that exists within our special family. We are blessed beyond measure, and I have no doubt in the world there was quite the welcome party waiting for you from those in our family who made their journey before you. Mom, there is one thing I'm a bit upset about. We didn't get one last holiday letter from you. I realize it's only July and there are still many months in the year, but I could use a Judy picture collage and a letter right about now. A friend once said to me, we would get so excited when Judy's holiday letter would arrive, sometimes around St. Patrick's Day or even Easter. But it was like she pulled up a chair and was sitting right at the kitchen table talking to us. Your energy was always felt and appreciated. Last, but certainly not least, Mom, I received a note from a labor and delivery nurse in Steamboat, and I want to share it with you. It read, Molly, I am so sorry to hear about your mama. I feel so fortunate I got to sit next to her on a flight from Indy to Denver with my puppy. The whole thing was serendipitous. I remember racking my brain on how I knew your name and why it seemed familiar to me when she was telling me about you. Just as I was leaving the plane and walking away, I stopped and thought, Henry. Molly was Henry's mom. I turned around and said, you're Henry's grandmother. I was there at the hospital that day. She smiled that big, big, beautiful smile. She said, "Yes, I am Henry's grandma." She thanked me for saying his name. "Your family will be in my thoughts, and I'm so sorry this happened." Mom, thank you always for honoring our baby boy and certainly for holding and continuing to hold my hand and heart on this intense journey. I hope to make you proud and shower Poppy, Jude, and Josie with all the adventures, total fun, and complete love that you showered Sean and I with. In the meantime, have a serious snuggle fest with Henry for me and cover him with all that Judy goodness. I love you forever, and I'll hold your everlasting joy so close to my heart. Hugs, the giant ones, and kisses, your baby girl.
Hi, I'm one of Judy's sisters. I'm Jane Anvik, and there are 5 Anvik kids, and we lost one this last week. I'm her identical twin sister. Now, I don't know how many twins there are in the audience, but I spent 72 years being confused. Other people were confused. They couldn't tell us apart, ever. Except for my mom. By the way, Sean and Molly, I'd say Judy's a fabulous mom. Look at these beautiful people and how well they did. Thank you. But I want to tell you some twin stories. They mixed us up in school. They mixed us up in sports, on basketball teams. We mixed it up on dates. We mixed it up on political campaigns, and they could never tell us apart. So we sometimes took advantage of that. And I think that in school, for example, I took most of the math tests, and Judy produced all of the artwork. And they could never tell us apart. In sports, they couldn't tell us apart. When I'd drawn 3 fouls in a basketball game, we'd just go to the locker room and switch shirts. They both said Anvik. But I had a different number then and a few more shots. We switched on dates. Judy always had more dates on Saturday than she could keep. And so she would say, "Would you go out with him?" And we did that a lot. But never on Bob. We also switched in campaigns. I live in Alaska, and I was running for office, and I seem to have 4 4th of July parades scheduled in different towns. So Judy got 2, and I got 2, and she was on the float. It said, "Anvik for Lieutenant Governor," and she was smiling and waving, and she said, "Well, what do I do if they ask me a question?" I said, "Ask their opinion and agree." Okay, I got it. So, and my opponent was really mad because at one point they took a picture of us together campaigning, and he said, "You got on the front page above the fold, I get equal time." And the guy said, "Well, if you've got an identical twin, you can have one too." So it was a lot of fun. It was a great amount of fun. And as you know from just knowing Judy, there was laughter in many, many ways. In our household, we were doing the dishes, but we were always dancing and doing the dishes in the kitchen. And so dancing became a very big and important part of both Judy and Bob's life in many ways, but it was learned. Patty taught us how to dance in the kitchen when we were about 10 years old. What I would have to say is that the oddest time when people got confused was at my wedding. And I have 3 sisters, and they were my people in the wedding, and they were wearing peach-colored dresses, and they walked down the aisle. And Judy was the 3rd person down the aisle, and they all started standing up. And Judy said, sit down. I'm not Jane. She's the one in the white behind me. Sit down. So the whole church was actually doubled over in laughter when I walked down the aisle, and so my marriage was starting on a very joyful note. Anyway, my sisters, my brother are crushed by her loss, but we also know that we have learned that there's 2 parts of passing. One is when you lose your last breath, which happened this week. But the other, we can do something about. And as Sean mentioned, that is our opportunity. Our opportunity. Everyone here has the opportunity to tell Judy Zier stories, to tell them to people who are younger than you are, to tell them to people who you work with, but particularly tell them to children and grandchildren, because the last time you really pass is when the last person speaks your name or tells your story. So we all have that opportunity to continue the energy of Judy Zier by telling your stories to whoever you run into, and they could be on a plane, they could be in a restaurant, they could be across the table from you. And there are enough Judy stories to go around for quite a while. So we are blessed by her presence in our lives, her generosity to all nieces and nephews. She would send huge Halloween boxes to every niece and nephew as long as they lived. You got a costume, a Halloween costume from Judy. That's just one story. There are many. So we look forward to hearing more Judy stories from all of you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for all the help that everyone has provided. Our extended family is grateful. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Patty Hergie. I'm the oldest Anvic sibling, and I'm here with my sister Peggy, who's the next in line. Judy was a gifted and energetic about gathering people together, especially for joy and for laughter. She organized a surprise birthday party for me a few years ago with people from all over, but she made each family and neighbor and friend group compose and perform an original song or poem. It was a very funny event that united all the participants in joy and laughter, and there are cousins here who could tell you some of their songs that they performed for the event. We went each summer to our cabin in northern Minnesota, and Judy was always there and always with the children. Once we were gathered there when a dump truck of rocks were noisily delivered so that we could construct a rock wall. Not certain how it happened, but Judy took charge of the project, having children digging dirt over here and others setting stones. She directed the activities, and she kept flailing her arms, and she had a bandana, it was a little hot. She was with energy and forcefulness and humor. And finally, when the rock wall was done, she urged everyone to dive into the lake to celebrate. I am not sure she ever made a rock wall before or since, but it's still standing, and we surely had sweaty fun. It is so powerful for all of us to gather, to celebrate, to mourn, and to develop meaningful rituals, times that we come together. Our extended family of about 60 gathers from far and wide every few years, and we did that last Saturday. Judy, who was always there, realized that she couldn't travel to be with us. But she wanted to know all the details of who was coming, what events were planned, and what about that big jumpy castle with the water slide attached for the children. At the gathering, after we've eaten and done all our fun things, we take a family picture with about 60 souls, and then we have a small ritual. We call out the ancestors. Excuse me, who are not present, but definitely with us in spirit. We welcome and bless the children that are joining the family since the last time we were together. Last Saturday, Molly and Rob's children, Poppy, Jude, and Josie, were welcomed. Judy had me read her the certificate that we use, which says, "We, your family, gathered, welcome you to this amazing journey of faith and life. We ask blessings from your ancestors and all gathered here together today for you and for your parents. Our family rejoices in you, and we promise we will never let you go." Becky would like to read the prayer that we then read. You want this one?
I want a prayer, yeah. In the small book that you have is the response. And if you have the little one, I'd like you to join me in the second paragraph, please. This ancient love permeates us all. We are compelled to share it with each new generation. This ancient love, a fierce and tender love, passes through all generations, all faiths, all cultures. This ancient love holds us all, insisting that we are not alone. Please join me in the response. Long before the night was born from darkness, long before the dawn rolled unsteadily from fire, long before she wrapped her scarlet arms around the hills, there was love. This ancient love was born.
That song, Dancing Queen, was ABBA's only song to make it to #1 in the United States. That fact baffles me. There is another song about dancing, a 1963 song called Lord of the Dance by Sidney Carter. I learned Lord of the Dance at church camp more than just a few years ago. By the 1970s, partly because of its pairing with a shaker tune known as Simple Gifts, it became widely used even in church worship, unlike Dancing Queen. If you don't know the song, the chorus says, "Dance then, wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance," said he, "and I'll lead you all wherever you may be. And I'll lead you all in the dance," said he. You remember it, don't you? In writing the lyrics to Lord of the Dance in 1963, Sidney Carter said he was inspired partly by Jesus, but also by a statue on his desk of the Hindu god Shiva, who was in a dancing pose. Carter said this of his inspiration to write the song: "I see Christ as the incarnation of the piper who is calling us. He calls us to dance in the moments of life that are joyful and in the moments of life that are difficult. All of life is a part of our dance." For Judy, she danced sometimes, many times literally, but always danced as a part of her spirit. It's how she approached almost every moment of her life. She needed no dance floor. She brought joy to us, though all that she was, the love and compassion that she extended to us. She loved her children, her grandchildren, her neighbors, and those of us she adopted as her own. She loved her students and would do anything to see them succeed. I have no doubt, as we gather this day, her dance continues. Maybe even better now than before, for she has been fully healed and made new. Dance then wherever you may be, for I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. When I went to the house on Sunday afternoon, it was clear that I might not see her again on this earthly plane. I asked Bob if I could share words passed to me, which I did. Bob asked if I would use them to close this service this day. These are my words to Judy. May your mind, which has served you in this life, now be conformed to the mind of Christ, that you may know God. May your eyes, which have beheld the beauty of creation, now see the glory which is prepared for all who love God. May your ears, which have reveled in the sound of those whom you love, now hear the comforting sound of Jesus calling your name. May the words of your mouth, which have expressed love to those in this room, now become joined with angels and hosts of heaven. May you know at this hour that you walk with Jesus, who promised to prepare a place for you. May your heart, so filled with love for family and friends, now be filled with grace as you enter the heart of God. And I ended with the blessing. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen. The family will be available to greet you in the Great Hall in just a moment. There are appetizers and light refreshments. Please eat them. It is not just for family, it is for everyone. We hope you will take a moment, share a story and a snack as you remember our dear Judy.